Welcome to DNF. This is a Formula One podcast. I am Spencer Hall. Joining me, as always, is Jessica Smetana, and joining us is special for this episode, Spanners. Spanners, welcome back.
Hey man, I've been thinking, it's been too long since you've had me on. You've been wasting your time with the likes of Alanis King and Nate Saunders, like real journalists. Oh, look at me. I'm Nate. I work for ESPN and I know people in the paddock. What a useless waste of time that's been. Back to people like me saying what they reckon from a shed.
That is how Formula One started. Like, this is the spirit of British racing, right? Yeah. All you're doing, crafting hot takes in a shed.
I'm the garagista of F1 content. That's what I am. Never mind these works teams, the ESPNs and the Skies. Let's bring it real.
You also started a TikTok. We need to discuss that. You're not just a guy in a shed doing podcasts anymore. You're a guy in a shed doing TikToks.
World's oldest influencer. That's what I'm going for. So I'm learning the TikTok style. So it's at Missed Apex F1 on Twitter. But I'm adapting from doing 2-hour podcasts to 60-second hot takes. So you have to steam in there with, this is my opinion, this is why I'm right, if you disagree, you suck, boo, out, done. So the rest of this show, I'll be in TikTok mode, fully hot takes.
That means you're doing like the hand motions and stuff, right? Like you're gonna
doing a TikTok dance.
Can you dance for us?
No, and then I will, obviously that's why I've got the crop top on, so I'm in soldier.
Hi, I'm Spanners, get ready with me.
No, you get ready with me while I give hot takes on DNF. And also you go, Colapinto's ruined his F1 chance. Let's get into it.
Well, let's get into it. We're actually not going to start with Colapinto. We are going to start with some of the fallout from Qatar. Man, that was a debacle, wasn't it? What are your lingering thoughts on the disastrous showing by everything race control related?
Well, I'm a company director and I'm taking inspiration from the FIA president, and I'm thinking that I will sack half of the competent people in my organization and just expect everything to run smoothly. So obviously we know that they got rid of the previous race director, but what I think might have been missed was they promoted someone to replace the junior series race director, and it was a lady whose name has escaped me.
Jeanette Tan.
She got fired without even doing an event. So you go, okay, so they said, right, this new guy who we've put pressure on, who has only done one race as race director, instead of just doing F1, you're now going to do F2, Formula, the Academy Series thing. And you go, oh, and lo and behold, when it came down to this clutch, crucial decision, they didn't just get it wrong, they froze.
Yeah, it's fight, flight, or freeze, right? They could have fought. They could have been like, oh, let's do the most drastic thing possible, because at least if we make a drastic decision to do like a red flag or something like that, we could defend it with, well, everyone was safe. We kept everyone safe. We were erring on the extreme side of caution. But they were like, no, let's just have everyone drive around this Alex Albon's mirror and hopefully nothing happens, and we'll just keep our fingers crossed the whole time.
Does that seem like a great idea when you still effectively have open cockpit cars? To have a piece of debris that, yes, there's a halo there. It's still open air. That's the part. We have a little note here that says, why wasn't a safety car brought on? And can marshals go onto the track to pick up debris without a safety car? I'm just going to skip ahead and say, no, you don't know. Do you know there's one sport that can't mess with safety, and that's Formula One. I mean, that to me is like a historical thing. Like legacy wise, Formula One has to be more cautious. They have to be more careful than other sports.
I mean, I've been watching for a long time, since the bad old days in the 80s, and that was before safety existed. There was no health and safety back in those days, and that's when we bred men back then. But there is a history in Formula One of like marshals sprinting out, grabbing the piece of whatever, and then running back. So I think a lot of the older F1 fans would look at that and go, it's like 3 steps from the pit lane. Just go get it. Just go get it real quick. And then, like, we don't even have to send the best one out. Just send Derek. He's been annoying everyone anyway. Send one of the kids out.
Send our slowest marshal out, and it still won't matter because it's just a tiny piece of mirror. He'll just grab it and run
So
back.
I understand. So now they say we won't send a marshal out unless it's under virtual safety car or safety car. But definitely, traditionally, someone would have stood on the end of the pit wall and gone, all right, bit of a gap there. Take a few steps out. I'll grab it. I'll come back in. Now, I don't want to be one of those people who said, back in my day, We went and grabbed the piece of debris, and it never did us no harm. Well, not me personally, but Derek and Derek over there, their lives were cut short. Good lads, those guys. So I'm not saying you shouldn't have any safety in it, but if you are going to have a piece of debris on the track, you need to clear it.
Right. So, don't do nothing. That's the problem, is that they just did nothing for 5 laps.
I thought there was just a bit of indecision, and then their hand was forced when Bottas went over it. So
poor Bottas.
Yeah, then they
perfect finish.
And by the way, I'm counting because somebody said to me, I think it was Meg on the Ringer, said to me, "Oh, that Colapinto's crash was Williams's 16th crash." And I was like, "Yeah." And then the 17th was Albon's mirror.
No.
And then the 18th was then the debris puncturing Lewis Hamilton's car, and then the 19th was puncturing Carlos Sainz's car.
That's not fair. You can't count those.
Look,
count them. Williams has got to win something.
Yeah. Obviously, they had to do something with the safety car then, but I thought they were just thinking about what to do and what's the best way to clear this. But in fact, their whole plan was that wing mirror was off the racing line, therefore it's not an issue, and we were just going to let it continue. But if you look at that track, there was only one place where anything interesting happened, and they were going to run the whole second stint with the one overtaking spot completely neutralized. And that is madness, and that is something that no experienced F1 race director was going to do. That is a direct result of sacking your race director with 3 races to go, with a championship still on the line. Absolute insanity.
I thought that their statement afterwards too, like, almost made it worse, like you said, because they were like, yeah, this is just what we do, and there's small pieces of debris on the track. And it's like, I don't think that's true.
No. No, it's always been a priority to get the debris cleared off the track. And they say, well, it's off the racing line. Well, clearly not, because we saw how many overtakes into turn 1, and then Bottas wasn't even racing. He was just getting out of the way to obey a blue flag. So had he not gone out there, he risked a penalty from ignoring blue flags anyway. And it was just a spectacular shattering of this wing mirror. But back to what Spencer was saying, we all remember Massa still, who had a very severe head injury from, an object on the track getting flicked up and hitting his helmet. Now, I don't know what damage a wing mirror would do if it hit someone in the head, but just as a matter of course, let's get that cleared. But it was worse because they started off with a yellow flag. And so a yellow flag is, there's something to look out for. But then the double waved yellow flag is not normally for debris. A double waved yellow is normally there's a marshal on the track. We've had to get some kind of safety vehicle out, or there's a car in the barrier in the firing line of the corner. And how can you go from double waved yellow flag, which means slow down and prepare to stop, to we're going to be okay, we'll just run the race like this, to then, oh, whoops, that was a horrible idea. But even then, Sainz had a burst tire from that debris, so the debris scattered everywhere, nothing. Sainz got his puncher, Hamilton got the puncher. Sainz did a full lap with a puncher and still got into the pit lane, and there was no safety car. So you just go, this is madness. And it comes from the very, very top. It was an unprepared change of race director. They've sacked like 12 people. This is worse than Ninjago with his generals, when he keeps launching the generals from the volcano.
I totally understood that reference.
Same.
What light can you shed onto why any of these sackings have happened? Because the head of the FIA, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, has been very don't ask me, not my problem, mind your own business about it. We have some quotes from him. There was a quote, this was the lead in a Reuters story this weekend. It says, FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem has told Formula One drivers to mind their own business after they asked where money from race fines was going and why senior figures had left the governing body. So he's literally just saying don't ask me about my stuff. I don't ask your teams about when you guys let people go. None of my business, none of your business. And everyone is left wanting a satisfactory answer.
So normally, I'd be a bit scared of one day I'd like press access. I'd like to be not actively shunned by the grown-up journalists as well. But even the mainstream media are now going, what the hell is going on up there? And so he's coming up for re-election. There's been some questioning of specific FIA funds, and there's a weird system of patronage. So, everywhere around the world, all those little motorsport clubs that are affiliated with the FIA, they all get one vote. And so I want to keep a very careful eye on their facilities. If they suddenly get, a brand new pit box for, that despot country off into the. You go, it's not a good system. I think there's virtually no chance of him being voted out. That's the biggest issue, and he's clearly running it as a dictatorship. He wants to change the rules so that they fired the ethics committee guy.
I saw that today. Yes, I saw that there was
always a good sign.
Basically, any investigation in revolving around the FIA has to be dictated by the president of the FIA now. That was the new decision, right, Spanners?
Yeah, I mean, that screams, this is a stable and well-organized thing. But I think he virtually cannot be voted out with that system of patronage. I think he's very, very safe in the vote. But it's obviously untenable. The FIA is running out of people to do the jobs, according to Tim Bayer, who got let go as well, one of the longest-standing stewards who was sacked by text. And you go, yep, that was very, very evident. So when we heard all this news of the sackings, it's not something out of the blue that this happened in Qatar. We were all saying, you can't just sack tons of people and have the event go well. And the event went awful because without that, let's say they had a one-lap safety VSC, all the people who were running real strategies would have just come in, and then you'd have had Norris chasing down Verstappen for the win. The only people who would have lost out were the people who did the crazy alternate strategy. Can you guess who did the crazy alternate strategy? Yes, George Russell did. So everyone else would have been fine. I think maybe Bottas and Alonso as well. But we were robbed of a good race up front on a track that was a little bit disappointing, that isn't really suitable for Formula One cars because it's a MotoGP track. And instead of that, we had this complete farce. And you go, technically, Norris in that very confusing situation didn't lift. Verstappen, I think, lifted 11%. All of those lifts under a double waved yellow, when they knew the hazard was a wing mirror offline, they didn't need to prepare to stop because there wasn't marshals on the track. So, a very performative lift right at the end of the straight, and then go, I wonder if that caught Norris out. It did catch Norris out. He should have lifted also, but basically a race-ending stop-and-go penalty, and then not even just under normal conditions where he could just go and pit and then come out and still fight for points. It was after the safety car, after the massively delayed safety car, he then gets sent to the back of the grid, and you just go, it's a it's a slam dunk penalty, but caused by this ridiculous situation, and then exaggerated by the fact that the safety car was so late, the decision was so late, and then he gets sent all the way to the back of the grid. So can you tell I'm a little bit irked?
It was very confusing to watch too. Like, thank God this isn't deciding the championship.
I was going to say, you see he's totally safe at this point, right? That he is safe. He cannot really
from being voted out. Yeah,
the system of patronage is going to keep him from being voted out. There is one entity that really, I think, could, in theory, throw all of this into chaos and generate some real sort of effect here, and they're the owners of F1. Like, that's, to me, there is an obvious conflict here building between the owners of the sport, the franchise itself, and the FIA, which in a lot of ways I think has to demonstrate its relevance to the sport more than Liberty Media and F1 need it. That's how true is that?
So there's a bit of a standoff. So I think the FIA, which is the governing body, so different to F1 and Liberty Media, which is commonly referred to as FOM. So FIA own the name Formula One. So in theory, if there was any breakaway, then the FIA would have the right to whatever Formula One is. And also they have the licenses to run these events at the moment. However, if there was a split between that and Liberty Media said we had enough, I think the FIA would instantly run out of money. They're completely dependent on Formula One for money. And then so they would dissolve. And I guess their name, Formula One, they come to a deal and they can get it back again. So maybe they have to have 6 months of being called Formula Vroom Vroom race cars or whatever. Like, I don't care, because at this point, the FIA is wrecking the sport I love. It's an absolute farce to go to Qatar and do stuff like that. But for the whole year, or even the last few years, Liberty are very clearly upset with the FIA president. But he's been just dancing that line. So he goes, oh, yes, I'm going to take a step back, and then doesn't take a step back at all, makes outrageous comments, annoys all the drivers. The Drivers Association are absolutely fed up with him and the FIA. But so far, he's been dancing that line pretty well. I think sacking everyone and making a mockery of Grand Prix might have stepped over the line.
It's funny, like beginning either last season or this season, when might have been last year, all of the sort of, there's a lot of stuff going on with FIA declaring that they were going to crack down on all these different things, and there were all these leaks about things that Mohammed bin Sulayem had said in the past, and it seemed like the things were starting to heat up a little bit, and like who's leaking all of these stories about each other to the press, and then it sort of died down for a while, but it all is sort of connected, right? Like the drivers are, like you said, they're pissed about the swearing, not being able to swear, getting fined for swearing. They're pissed about the jewelry stuff. They're pissed about all of these very like silly little things where the FIA has decided to pick a fight. And even recently, we haven't even talked about this on the show, but the drivers group, they started an Instagram so that they could post this letter on their Instagram and talk about like why, basically the letter was like, we want to be treated like adults. And so they created an Instagram account just to post this letter, the GDPA that is. And so like all of this sort of stuff is adding up. And I guess like we as outsiders, like we don't know why it continues to keep, spiraling, but do you have any sort of sense of why?
Well, like normally as a fan, like these are very internal politics things. And, I'm just a pretty chill guy and I'll stay out of those politics, but it's because it affected the racing action. And I think the stewarding as well needs to come under some scrutiny. The way that scrutineering is done, the way that you have the race director distracted from the main event by also having to play referee, because he can choose not to refer something to the stewards or refer something to the stewards. So that gives him a big weapon and makes him basically almost like the head steward, if you like. So like first things first, separate the race director role from the steward's role, have a chief steward that decides whether something's going to be investigated. So let's sort out like the on-track things first. Since Charlie Whiting sadly passed away, no one has been able to marry the roles of basically head steward and managing the event. So let's let them focus on managing the event. It's not like there's no money in Formula One, is there? Like there's money. We can hire like a couple of people. Like I'll volunteer for just like until they save up enough to get a head steward. All you got to do is go, is that worthy of investigating? Right, I'll take that to my team. So there's some real things that need to be fixed for the on-track action, so it's not affecting that. And once that's sorted, go and have all the internal politics that you want. Like broadly speaking, we don't care until it ruins Grand Prix, and it ruined that Grand Prix.
I am just so curious as to why you would ever say anything in public if you were the head of FIA.
Oh, phew, I thought you were going to say me. Like,
no,
why would you say
I would.
Anything in public spanners?
You should say all kinds of things.
Because he has a TikTok and it's popping up.
You
right
have a
now.
TikTok.
I have a
that means you're a
microphone
real
and you
content
listen
creator
to every
now,
damn word.
right?
No, Spencer, to your point though, it's like when Roger Goodell does his annual press
Just
conference.
Shut up.
Yeah, right. It's like you don't need to do this.
No, you know what you have? You have a nameplate. You have all of the things that these tiny people love, right? With their tiny worlds and tiny brains. They have a nameplate. They have a job. They get to go to Stad for things. They get like shrimp cocktail, in the break room at lunch. They
Or
get
at St. Elmo's and
junkets,
Indianapolis.
endless junkets, right? Your life is just one well-padded red carpet of useless functionality. Right? Like that's it. You're just a functionary and we just pass you along. Why do you pick a fight with Max Verstappen over his language? Why do you butt in on jewelry? Why do you say a damn thing when you have this entire junket life planned out for you? You even moved your offices in Paris to keep a lower profile a while back, right? Like that's it. The FIA has no real reason to exist other than holding a rule book. That's it. Holding a rule book and certifying things. That's it. Why on earth would you screw it up?
I don't know. I do like being surrounded by sycophantic yes men and dismissing.
That could be you.
That could be me. And
you should go do that.
I would run the FIA like that. Do you know what? I've changed my mind. I was angry, but I've 160, 180 because of you. I'm back in the president.
The junket life. I want the junket life for you. It could be yours. All we have to do is get Liberty Media mad enough to do something.
We can do that for you. Spencer, can you make me a fired college football coach? That's literally all I've ever wanted in
Buyout
life.
life. That's it. Just give me a buyout. I don't want the job. I just want the buyout.
Exactly. Okay. Well, before we move on to some other things, is there anything else we want to say about the debacle? Lando's penalty, too harsh, correct? Yes?
No,
not
technically. He didn't lift under yellows, and it's like, oh, mate, I know there's a lot going on, but you see the yellow flag and you lift. Look, everyone at every level of racing knows this. So even if you're in an amateur go-kart event, right, if the yellow flag comes out, the equivalent in karting is a very tiny lift, but put your hand in the air, and then as you go at the marshal, point at someone else and go, I don't think they lifted, and you do the motion of the thing with your hand. So it's a game. It's a game with the yellow flags. Like, there was no real immediate danger. Why not do what Formula E does and have the race director come on the all comms on all teams? It interrupts everything. Hi guys, race director here. There's a wing mirror offline. So for the time being, we're not going to overtake or move offline through turn 1. Of course, you can do your normal racing speeds. We'll let you know as we change things. Simple as that. Just a little bit of communication, not, it'll be fine.
Yeah, this sport doesn't do communication that well. Unless it's people being really sassy after the race to reporters about one another, because there was another penalty this weekend in Qatar that had George Russell and Max Verstappen very angry at one another. What is your take on Max Verstappen say that he's lost all respect for George Russell?
Have you ever known a less happy winner? Like, you would think that after 4, you've just sealed your 4th world title, like nothing can touch you. You would rise above everything. Like, just whatever happens. Look at Lewis Hamilton. He'd secured a title, I think, in 2020, and Alex Albon swept around the outside in Interlagos and clattered into the both of them. And you know what? He just didn't want to pick a fight. He just went, yeah, whatever. My bad. Yeah, my bad. Sorry about that. Robbed Albon of a podium. But like, literally, Albon swept from left to the apex when there was a car there. And Hamilton was like, laissez-faire, let it be. We'll talk about it tomorrow. I'm champion. Whereas Verstappen is not just angry about that. He's going out of his way to tell everyone, I've lost respect for George Russell. He dobbed me in. He told on me. Dude, we all just heard you tell on Lando Norris for not slowing down under yellows. You're all trying to get each other penalties. But it's really weird that he's picked this fight. So you have to go, this must have been bubbling under the surface.
Mm-hmm. It went further than that,
So
claiming
true.
that George was somebody else in the paddock than he was on the track.
Yeah,
Right?
he said on TV, he's so nice, but in person, he's a viper.
I love
Drifting.
that.
Isn't that every F1 driver? Like, that's the notion. You put them in a car and they're supposed to be killers. All of them.
Yeah. Oh my God. You're telling me that a professional athlete has a different PR persona than their actual true personality? That's crazy.
But also, if I was, like, we're installing me as head of FIA, right? I think this is where this is
that's
going.
done.
Okay,
that's
cool.
Done.
So
yeah,
I'll
we're Americans. We can make that happen. Yeah.
Fine, let's do it. So I would not want to hear from the drivers at all. There's an incident on track. I will make my judgment. I don't need your opinion on it. I don't need to know what you were thinking. There's some clear rules, and I'll decide whether you broke them or not. So if you go back about 2-3 seasons, there was really big issues with people slowing down and trying to get the perfect position on their outlaps. And they were driving dangerously slowly, and you would have cars on their qualifying laps having to avoid like these stationary cars. So to clamp down on that, they said, right, you now have a slowest speed you can go on your outlap. And Verstappen was going slower than that on average. So they said, yeah, technically he could have then raced around the whole of that lap and technically made that maximum lap time, but you can't just keep slowing down and moving back down the order to find yourself a good spot. Also, the stewards definitely insinuated, they said, they made a real point in the report to say, and car 1 could see car, is it 16? Is Russell 16? No, that's Leclerc, isn't it? But 63. They were saying that he could see where George Russell was and then impeded him. So they were clearly implying he did it on purpose.
The thing bubbling under the surface being that George Russell is in charge of all the drivers that are meeting about changing the drivers.
Yes, so apparently is it the Grand Prix Drivers Association or whatever, GDPA, they have been saying with everything, all their votes or whatever, it's always 19-1. Mm-hmm. So I think you've got George Russell getting everyone together and saying, I don't think we should be allowed to clatter into everyone at will. And Verstappen's going, I think we should. So I think that is maybe where the rift is coming from.
You tell me that 1 is not Valtteri.
Oh no, he's such a chill guy. He's fine.
He's chill. I just can see him with a very Finnish attitude, being like, I have reached my own decision. I have done my own research. And I have made a completely insane decision over here by myself. But this is following the Kimi Räikkönen theory of I'm chill, but I also completely disagree with this and cannot be moved.
I never liked Kimi Räikkönen, but I love Valtteri Bottas.
So
He's
do
been
we.
doing a thing for charity. So it's What's Next, his charity of helping people who've just been unceremoniously sacked from their jobs. It's funny, but also nice.
He also said that he's interested in driving for Cadillac GM when they join F1, which was the big news last week in Formula One, that, Andretti's gone. Now GM said, we're not going to be a customer team. We're actually going to make our own engine by the end of the decade. And F1, well, you just made a face. Do you doubt if that's possible?
Well, it was like, oh, we'll have our own engine in 2028. And then it's, well, by the end of the decade.
They were like, we'll have our own engine by 2020.
Hang on a minute. We were listening to the first bit, GM.
But yeah, Valtteri was like, I'll drive for you. And they're like, hang on. There's a lot of people that want to drive for us. Hold your horses.
Join the queue. Well, I don't know. So they're going to be a mid-tier seat as far as, is it a buyer's market or is it a seller's market? So I don't think they can go and get a Leclerc necessarily. They're not going to wrestle Verstappen to go and drive for them. So you kind of go, who are the journeyman drivers that they can pick from? And you think, wow, actually, I think the best driver they could get is Gasly. So if you look in that kind of Gasly Ocon sphere, and then you go, well, is Bottas like a sexy siding? Is that someone who's going to bring you money? You can, well, yeah, obviously, there's you see a lot more of Bottas than certainly I consented to, but he has got some sort of media value, and he's probably heading to Mercedes because he basically launched the Mercedes TikTok channel. He does those wonderful adverts. He's been doing great things with Stake, but I think with GM Cadillac, they're going to want someone maybe like Joe, who's got some marketability. But my question to you guys is, as Americans, I think, right? You haven't sneaked a Canadian in anywhere.
No.
Okay. Sorry. I shouldn't have said anything. But like, how important to you is it that, say, there's an American driver? How important is it to you that there are American engineers?
Spencer, you go first.
All.
Not at all.
I was going to say,
my official stance is I don't give a shit. Like none.
Only if it's Daniel Ricciardo. That's the only American driver.
That is our American driver, is Daniel Ricciardo.
It's funny, I don't think the Australians, isn't it? It's like they count.
That's basically that's big Arkansas. So like, yeah, like that's what Australia is. You need to know, like, nobody. Okay, I don't think very many people who get into the sport stateside got into it and said, the thing I would like is for this to be more American. That's not the reason you follow. That's not the reason that you get into it. And the introduction of an American is not a positive or a negative. I think it would be evaluated based on the personality and performance. That's it. Like, I think a lot of people who saw Logan Sargent flop and him fail to get traction with fans here in the States didn't ever really consider that he wasn't very good. He wasn't on a team where he could succeed, and he wasn't exactly interesting. He's like 20. I don't know who's like interesting when they're 20, but I think an American fan would root for Ricciardo because Ricciardo's very personable, because anybody would root for Ricciardo.
And he's American.
Right?
Yeah.
And he's American. You would root for a team because they were cool. Like, I think Red Bull gets a lot of traction here because Red Bull, and this is going back decades at this point, Red Bull was, I know, but Red Bull were the bad boys on the block, right? We're not your dad's F1 team.
Shit. Yeah.
Right? We do crazy shit. We have guys with tattoos in our pit crew. That's like, they had like the big sexy pit crew before anybody else had. Like, they had the big nasty energy drink logo on the side of their cars. That's all things that I think the American viewer would go, oh, hell yeah, brother. Love that.
Come sit next to us on an airplane. Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah. That's not what you want. But these are things that, like, I think transcend nationality. And so if Cadillac does it, one, I don't know Cadillac, unless they're trying to attract a 58-year-old man with substantial spending power. That, to me, is who the Cadillac market is aimed at here. I don't think the brand itself.
Jess, that's what you said to me. The old man cars.
I take it back. No, I don't take it completely back. Spencer, how do you describe? Spanners asked me over DM like how I would describe Cadillac the brand, and I was like, it's a lot of old people cars. But
your dad's dad,
yeah,
your dad's dad wanted a Caddy.
I don't entirely mean that to sound as bad as it sounds, because also I think a lot of cool vintage classic Cadillacs still have a lot of like cultural nostalgia in the United States.
Well, and also it's an interesting
and
thing
Escalades.
because
Escalades are ginormous, and they're
I have no idea
everyone who goes on a bachelorette party needs one to Uber them to the club.
Imagine an APC, like an armored personnel carrier, that had a really nice stereo, and that's an Escalade.
Oh man, like when I was in Miami, just going into a parking lot, and just seeing the size of the average car was one of the most eye-opening. It was
sickening.
This whole country is going to hell, Spanners. This whole
honestly,
country
like
is going
all of you are
straight to hell.
driving a tank, and it's
Correct.
crazy.
Did you see the tank at the airport? There's a tank at the Miami airport. Anyway, Spencer, go on with Cadillac.
None of us are seeing heaven. That's what you see when you see an American parking garage. Is you go, yeah, we're going straight to hell. But with Cadillac, what you need to know is this: that Cadillac has gotten into racing in a way that I think makes it one of the more accessible brands. Like Mercedes, you could go out and buy a Mercedes. It might strain the budget. You can go find one and get a Mercedes. You're probably not getting your hands on a McLaren. You're probably not getting your hands on a Ferrari, right? You're probably not getting your hands on an Aston Martin.
All right, this is getting hurtful now. It's
I
like,
know.
Yeah, you're like my mum.
You can pick up probably.
You'll never get an Aston Martin being on radio and doing podcasts.
I have gotten to the point in my life. I've gotten to the point in my life where I could get one, but it would destroy every other quarter of my life. So I'm not going to do it, and I don't want that. Additionally, I think it would bottom out in my driveway because I've measured. So the thing is, Cadillac's accessible, right? So Cadillac has cars that people, in theory, could get their hands on here. And that, I think, makes them unique, right? Like, I'm not saying that, oh, wow, this is a thing that's going to make them really successful in terms of transcending the marketing and finding a brand, right? But you can get your hands on a CTS. And Cadillac has done a very good job of doing what I think very few brands can actually say, that's integrating the racing brand into something that you might have as a daily driver, and thus sort of making it a one-stop siloed kind of presence. And I think that's cool.
Okay, but was Renault cool? Because it feels like you're describing.
We can't drive. Listen, Renault would be cool here. We can't drive them here.
Oh my god, I've got a Renault because I can afford it. Because French cars in the UK get slated so much that it actually affects the market value. That's why I have a Renault and a Peugeot in my driveway. So you've just described to me like, okay, Renault coming into F1 to me, did that seem cool to you? To me, it was like, really? Okay, that's
Renault's Renault's not cool. Like, was Renault ever like Renault we might be hipsters and find something cool about Renault, right? I know I can do that with Peugeot, but it's not an easy. I have to sort of go 2 or 3 steps and go, oh, okay, well, there's a cool Peugeot rally car and it was driven by this guy, right? And no, for real.
Oh, no, honestly, I thought you said Peugeot by accident, but that's just how you say Peugeot. Wow, okay, cool. Yeah. Peugeot. Let's go for it.
I'm not French, please. I'm going to say it Peugeot.
All right, what are our thoughts on Citroën or whatever that car is called?
I come under quite a lot of flack for not saying Charles Leclerc. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. It's spelt Charles Leclerc.
You didn't win the Battle of Agincourt, so you could say Charles Leclerc.
Exactly. We didn't develop the long bow just so that we could have
That's Chuck Leclerc.
They helped us win the revolution, so we say it
That's true.
Correctly.
That we do say it correctly. It's part of the contract.
We let you have that one. We're time.
But like, I think that's like with Cadillac, they've done a pretty good job making their brand a little bit cooler by really embracing racing at every single level. So I do think that's a little bonus for them. Not huge, but it's a little bonus.
Spencer, am I also like have you seen Detroiters with Tim Robinson?
Yes.
Okay. Am I too Detroiters pilled, or is GM, like, Americans have like a positive brand awareness with GM, or have I just been watching too much Detroiters?
I think they have an American identification with GM. I think GM means a lot in Michigan. I don't know if it means a lot elsewhere.
Well, I am from Rust Belt adjacent, so maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
I will give Spanish a little insight into the Southern playbook, which is that Ford v GM, big NASCAR rivalry, and you either like one or you like the other, and not in between.
Okay, tell me which one I'm supposed to like, because I'm really trying to not.
Oh no, you just got to pick one. Stay violently loyal to it beyond all reason.
I'm a Toyota guy. That's where I am. So
now you've fallen into the Southern category of the Tundra is a respectable truck, and I got to admit it. Like, that's it. That's a pretty good truck.
Oh man, that reminds. I saw a Tundra a few weeks ago in Miami that had a wrapping on it that said Lexus. That was awesome.
You saw a toy Axis?
It's my fault. I asked Americans about car brands, and now they're talking about trucks. So
Yeah,
We
no,
would
that's how it
steer it
goes.
right to trucks every
Well,
time.
you saw was it in Austin? They had the lifted trucks that were doing the
Yeah.
drivers parade. We talked about it with Alanis after the
Yeah.
USGP. That was a touching moment. Yeah, the Cadillac GM car is just gonna be an Escalade where they rip the top off, put a halo on it, and so Colton Herta is going to be driving it in the Grand Prix.
Mhm.
So I don't want to be negative about the GM entry at
Sure.
all. I'm just being realistic. They're going to have a little bit of an advantage as they come in because they're not under the cost cap. So if GM's willing to really throw some money at it and go out there and like get the sexiest signing that you can, which is why I think like Pierre Gasly, not just aesthetically a beautiful young man, but also he has a proven record against a lot of the midfield guys. So he looked good against Tsunoda. He's looked good against Ocon. Like we know he can muscle a midfield car around and get results. And like my son has, every time he's sat down to watch F1 with me lately, he's gone, how is Gasly there again? Almost like, how dare he? How dare he put an Alpine up there? But that's what they need. If they were to wander in, no offense, but with like a Logan Sargent and Joe Guan Yu, you go,
Sure.
oh, that would say a lot about their ambition. So I think the driver lineup they get will say a lot about their ambition and a lot about what the rest of the F1 field thinks about them. So like I would love them to come in, do a bit of a Haas because you've had an advantage, maybe some support from Ferrari. Then you come in and score a top 6. And that would be like a real win for Cadillac with the right drivers, and then develop and not fall away in the same way that Haas have. And then you can maintain this thing of going, okay, yes, now there's an American team we can be proud of, because I do feel like you Americans didn't fully get behind Haas as an American F1 team.
I think
Correct.
that is definitely correct.
I think, the Haas also had like financial entanglements with a Russian oligarch when I got into F1. So
who among us?
But Gunter helped.
Gunther did help, but again,
I don't want to talk about my Russian links. You know, I like the cash flowing.
This is why this is also, to my point, who was one of the most popular guys in Drive to Survive with Americans, the Swiss Italian guy, right? Gunther. That's Gunther Steiner.
It took me a minute. I was like, wait, who? And I just
I was trying to get exactly where he's from. I believe he's from Tyrolia.
South Tyrol, yeah.
Yeah.
Same places like Yannick Sinner and a lot of sports people from there.
We like the guy who kind of sounded like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who cussed a lot. That's again.
Who lived in Charlotte.
Who lived in Charlotte and shopped at the mall there, because we have multiple people who said they saw him at the mall.
I'm very committed to F1, but I'm here in Charlotte. You should read nothing into that.
Spanners, I'm going to take you to Belk next time you're in.
Good, yeah, big. This is
some Southern Tide.
I don't know if there's any possible way to segue this, but why is Ocon? Why now is he being replaced for Abu Dhabi?
Because Alpine are being petty as hell, I think.
Is that why?
I think so. Carlos Sainz is racing in Abu Dhabi, and then in the Abu Dhabi test, he's in a Williams. So it can be done. But I think there might be some other motivations. So obviously, because I'm English, I would like to assign the worst possible motives to Alpine. So my real answer is that it's just petty bitterness because Ocon jilted them. You know, they're behaving like a jilted lover. But this also ties in, I think, to Colapinto. So bear with me a second.
Okay.
Colapinto, belle of the ball. Everyone wanted his number. He was the prettiest girl at prom, and he had suitors lining up to have a dance. His dance card was full. And I think in Formula One now, if you get a reputation for being a bit crashy, for putting it in the wall, I think that is much more damaging than good performances. So on the surface, you go, right, he's fast. He had those outings. He was making Albon look a little bit slow, but Albon probably isn't out there race after race, giving it 110%, driving right on the limit, because that is generally a low percentage success rate. So I'm obsessed with tennis now. So tennis is like my go-to with everything. I've got a huge serve that will go in 1 in 10. So if I keep doing that, you're going to go, this guy's a bit wild. Like, I'm not going to have him on my doubles team. And it's the same with the guy with the big drive off the tee. So yeah, I can hit a 300 yards, drive once it's continued rolling. But every other drive, goes off for a penalty in the boundaries. So you have to play a percentage game. I would score better in golf if I teed off with a 7-iron. Like legitimately, if I teed off with a 7-iron, I could break 100. But I'm never going to do that because I love hitting it with the big stick. So I think Colapinto's gone in there and he's hitting it with the big stick. He's had a couple of blistering drives and we all fell in love with him, me included. But then he starts putting it in the wall and you go, it's not a case of, no, he was so quick, he's super fast. If he can just iron out the putting it in the wall 3 times in 2 events, then he would be great. I think probably part of being a Grand Prix driver is being able to play the percentages, play the odds and do something sensible, put together a whole season. And I think those crashes have put Red Bull off. So Red Bull have said, we're no longer interested in Colapinto. And you go, well, the only other team interested in him was Alpine. So you think, well, Alpine had Jack Doohan signed for the whole 2025 season, but they didn't. Apparently, they've only had him signed up for 5 or 6 races to prove himself. So now they're in this situation like, we've got Colapinto if we want him. We can afford him. We can put him in. We've got Doohan. So what we'll do is, since we've got this opportunity with Ocon, we'll just say, no, you're driving for Haas in the Abu Dhabi test. We'll use this opportunity to put Doohan in. So I think actually Jack Doohan's task has got a little bit easier. I think all Doohan has to do is keep it out of the wall, finish within a few places of Gasly, and then start 2025 by being broadly sensible and not doing a De Vries, not doing a Logan Sargent, not doing a Romain Grosjean, not doing a Mazepin or a Mick Schumacher, because that's how you destroy your reputation, is by scattering carbon fiber all over the track. And I think that's why we've got this situation.
So does the Constructors' Championship not matter to them?
Is the Constructors' Championship a joke to you? No, there's a penalty now. There's a penalty for finishing higher in the Constructors. That you taught me, Jess. You taught me.
You're right. They're tanking. I forgot. I totally forgot that I told you that.
If you, do you really want the extra prize money for finishing 5th instead of 6th? I don't know. Let's say the gap is 5 million.
No, they've got Ryan Reynolds and Travis Kelce and who else?
They have
I don't
celebrities.
Remember. Yeah,
they
Patrick
have
Mahomes.
Celebrities.
I'll chuck a few quid in if they want. I've got 2,000 followers on TikTok. You can count me as a celebrity. But why wouldn't you effectively pay 5 million to then have more wind tunnel time for this regulation change that's coming up in 2026?
True. Well, okay. I wanted to ask you. So Esteban Ocon literally is checked out. He has exited the villa. I was trying to think of the most.
What is this reference?
Love Island.
Oh, right.
I was trying to think of the other most checked out drivers that we will see at this race. Lewis Hamilton's got to be number 1, right?
He might be eating in the car.
Is he more checked out than Ocon, who is not actually present and checked in?
Oh my God, I've got this vision now of like a Brad Pitt style, how he eats in every movie.
Yes.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton just like chewing on a dog.
A really nice vegan burrito. Just, yeah.
I don't know.
I can create a full race in aggregate, but
I don't think we caught it during the race. But basically, he got a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Nailed on. Don't speed in the pit lane. You've been doing this for long enough. You don't make mistakes like that or doing a jump start. And also, we've seen people do the kind of jump start that Lewis Hamilton has done. So Bottas has done it, Vettel's done it, and they've done it without a penalty because they realized, hit the brakes, stopped, and then went again. Hamilton kept the wheels rolling and ended up getting this penalty, then ended up getting a drive-through penalty as well. And as he came in, he said, look, we'll just park it. Retire the car. I want to retire the car. And the Mercedes pit crew pointed out to him, like, if you serve the penalty now and then go out again, you won't have the penalty for the next race. So it's okay. And then the next lap, they said to him, okay, Lewis, retire the car. And he went, no. Not because you told me to. Not now you told me to. I wanted to retire when I wanted to. And you go, oh, it was so petty. And you just go, no, he is so done. And he's been done for a while. But yeah.
I was going to ask you, like, has he been done in every race minus Silverstone? Because he was out-qualified by Russell 18-5 this season and 5-1 in sprints. But then he won 2 races.
Yeah, but they're so consistent. Like Hamilton and Russell throughout all the practice sessions and stuff. And then like Q1 will be okay, often Q2. And then you get to Q3 and you go, he's got no pace. You go, well, where's the Q3 pace gone? And he has complained about things like tire temperatures and stuff. So, I'm a neutral. So I've got no reason to sit here and just defend Lewis Hamilton. Okay,
Mhm.
don't do that. Look, so you go.
Same.
How has that drop off happened so quickly? You go, well, if you wanted to be cynical, and I do, you would say that if Hamilton soundly beat Russell this season, which he might have done given the relative race pace. So if you look at their race pace and how they've managed the tyres, Hamilton has still looked broadly stronger on a Sunday, barring last weekend. If that had happened, Mercedes would look so weak right now. They would look so weak. They'd get to the end of the season, their best driver goes off to Ferrari, and then they've got Russell and a rookie. It was imperative for Mercedes to have Russell be the top driver this season. Now, it could have coincidentally happened. It could have done. It's stop being such a cynic. It could have coincidentally happened, but the drop off has been so severe. And like, why is it exclusively at the end of qualifying? So we'll see. Look, if he goes to Ferrari and just is getting regularly thumped by Leclerc, then you kind of go, might be an age thing. Might be.
I don't believe the age thing. He's 40. Like, people act like you turn 40 and you just like shrivel up into dust and die.
It's true though.
I'm 44 and I'm still magnificent. Like Spencer's like what, 35, and he's still feeling strong.
I'm 35 years old. We'll just say that.
But that beard is 87 years old.
Okay, guess my age next.
We don't do that with women.
Nope.
Double standard.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't like.
I'm standing way back here on this double standard.
I don't like to guess the ages of people in their early 20s, Jess. I'm not playing.
Okay, just guess my weight then. Okay, but yeah, I'm with you. There's probably a lot of logical explanations for the drop off, including the fact that like they're probably not including him on important meetings and things like that. Yeah, right. But also, I think mentally, like when you tell everyone you're leaving a job a year before you leave that job, I think it's impossible to stay motivated at that job. We've seen him be nails at the place where he's most motivated to win, which is Silverstone. So, you know, I think that next year, I think he'll be fine. I don't know. I'm not concerned yet. Maybe I should be.
I wanted to cover something, which was we've had drivers sniping at each other, and drivers can do this a lot of different ways, and they can insult each other a lot of different ways. And I wanted to go to a quick sort of, since you're the expert here, I wanted to get a hierarchy of insults. I'm afraid it's you.
Oh no,
it's you.
Sorry about
Just
that.
pointed to you on camera. Therefore, it must be you. Remember, you're closer to the FIA's headquarters. Therefore, you're more official, and we've got you.
We'll and I'm from the home of motorsport as well.
Right.
So
and you drive a Renault.
Charlotte, North Carolina. Actually, we're closer to that. Yeah, it's right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. But I wanted to get the hierarchy of insults right about the best ways and the most cutting ways to insult another driver. Right?
Okay, so George Russell wins that this week.
Right, and how did he do it? What was the channel?
So there's been a lot of discussion about whether other drivers could win the championship, and Verstappen, I think, rightly said, "Well, I would have won in the McLaren, right?" And so that's a way to insult Lando Norris. So Norris defends himself by saying, "Well, it's the biggest gap ever. No one's ever bridged a gap like that in Formula One." Now, there's two things wrong with that from my point of view. Is one, you're part of the reason why the gap was that big, and also two, the season's really long, so there's more time to build it up. How many reasons did I say? Because I've got three. And thirdly, like no record is ever broken until it is. So the last time a big gap was overcome, you know, they didn't go, "No, it's impossible. We've never overcome a gap this big." And I think the last time there was a gap, I think it was Ferrari threw away a 50-point lead, Alonso, in 2012. And there was only 19 races in that season as well. So you go, okay, well, there's that. And then basically Verstappen came in and said, "Well, I wasn't actually after a reply at all. I wasn't looking for one. I didn't ask for one. So there you go." But George Russell chipped in and said, "I would have won in the Mercedes or the Red Bull." And that Red Bull was really quick at the beginning of the season. Sometimes Perez even finished second. Like, that's the biggest insult. That is the biggest mic drop going. Even Perez finished second.
He's on the list of people that are totally checked out this weekend, by the way. But yeah, Spencer, do you think that's the main snarky way to insult someone on the hierarchy of insults?
I think that's a good one. I think Max chose the most powerful one, which is on the victory couch, because it shows that you're completely unafraid You do not care. And in addition to that, you know that everyone will hear it. I think number 2 is on a social media channel. If you can do that, right? Like when Jess and I were talking about, we have a mutual acquaintance in the college football world who was emotionally going through it. And he was posting very dramatic things to his Instagram stories. I think if you post oblique references to fake friends, snakes, or haters in the paddock, right, or in your own sport, right? This is something I feel like Lando Norris is going to excel at as he gets older, right? He'd be like, can't believe I thought that guy was my friend. Oh, well, ball up top. Like, he's going to really embrace that whole aesthetic and like work it as he gets older. And then I think the third one, the Sky Sports interview. Sky Sports interview is very strong. Doesn't necessarily have to be on the victory couch. I just think, afterwards, that's really good. But the fourth one is an innovation, and it's this. Everyone streams now, and everyone has their own streams, right? They'll stream a video game. They'll stream sim racing. I think if you make a comment about a driver there, it's low entry, but long range, because it usually gets cut up in these like TikTok compilations we see of people, right, making remarks about people, and it kind of lives forever there. So that's kind of my proposed hierarchy of the methods of insulting another driver.
If a 16-year-old is screen recording it and posting it on their Finsta, that is the deepest cut for sure. I think the cool down room, I would also add to that.
What, a side remark in the cool down room that we like edit,
the audio's terrible,
amplify the audio so we can hear them. Yeah.
Everyone's gross and sweaty and hot.
Yeah.
So as a beloved local radio personality, I would never want conflict. I want everyone to get along. I would love to be welcome. All my content is a broad church. But a few years ago, when you saw all the drivers just getting along with all of, with everyone, and like, we've been mates since we were, exactly, thumbs down. No one wants that. We want like top athletes having beef. But in Formula One, it's always been like these deadly rivalries. Like, listen to anything that comes out of Nigel Mansell's mouth about Alain Prost, and you go, yeah, that's it. That's what we want. And now they're like, oh no, we're bezies and we're going to go and do a iRacing stream afterwards. No thanks.
How about the best though is friends to enemies, enemies to friends, or the Ocon Gasly friends to enemies to friends, because they finished 1-2 and then they were all giggly together. That was a tremendous character development.
Yeah, I preferred it. Yeah, that's it after their podium in Brazil, wasn't it? They were like, it's been such a journey. We hated each other, but now now we're going to be each other's best men at each other's weddings, and we're going to holiday together. Boo! No.
The closer we can get it to professional wrestling, the better, because any wrestling fan knows when you see the 1-2, when you see the, what a journey we've been on, we're friends again. You know what's coming up? That's right, body slam out of nowhere. Somebody's going to turn heel. Somebody's going to betray him.
But you don't want it to feel like a club that you have no access to. You want to feel part of like one tribe or another. That's sport, isn't it? Like, we don't want everyone super getting along. They can get along in 20 years' time in the commentary box, looking back at the archives. That's fine. For now, no, it's war.
So in summary, Spanners, I think we can say every good friendship needs a folding chair just waiting off screen. I feel like there's a lot of wrestling
references I'm not getting. The last time I watched wrestling was the Ultimate Warrior versus Hulk Hogan. So
just know the folding chair is right there. It's Chekhov's folding chair. If we see it in frame, it's going to be used in the third act, and it's hitting someone in the back. That's what we want.
This is what an American F1 team can bring.
That's right.
To the sport.
This is what an American F1 team can bring to the table. Everyone getting along. That's done. That's over. That doesn't get ratings.
I've done a lot of F1 podcasts, and it is only the American ones where they talk about smacking each other with folding chairs. Just a reference, just so you know.
That's why we're the greatest country in the world.
Doing this.
That's
just
right.
Just for reference.
I think with that, this has been an episode of DNF. Is there anything else you need to plug other than your fabulous TikTok channel? Spanish?
No, it's all about the TikTok. I would never compete with this fine podcast in the podcast space. So don't listen to any other podcasts. They're trash. But go and follow Missed Apex F1 on TikTok and Spanners Ready on Blue Sky and Twitter.
Definitely wouldn't be a podcast called Missed Apex that you should listen to.
No, that would be a stupid podcast.
Or be a Patreon supporter of.
Or a Patreon supporter.
And join their Discord, but never just lurk in it.
Do that as well.
Just lurk in the Discord.
Don't do any of that.
I lurk so much in the Discord.
That's really kind of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Spanners.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Jess.
Thank you.
We will see everybody after